This is dangerous to put me on a microphone because I blast eardrums easily. My name's Andy. You are here for the funding panel, the funding and financing, and we've got a whole group of interesting folks talking about a very wide range of funding and financing opportunities for farmers. We're going to self-introduce because we can't all remember everything about one another. And I think we got an hour here, so you got like 10 minutes from each of us individually, and then Q&A for the whole group. If you got burning questions and you want to answer or ask them of the speaker directly after they're done, that's fantastic. If you got something for the entire group and you want to leave that to the end, that's fantastic too. If we don't get to your question right away, we will absolutely try to make sure that we get to it before we close this thing out. If there are any questions, ask them now, but I think otherwise we're going to roll. So put on your calculator hats. Hallie, you got a question? We have an hour and 20 minutes. Sweet. So we'll do our little things for an hour, and then we'll probably have Q&A for a good solid 20 minutes or more. So that's kind of the plan. We probably have people keeping us honest as far as time is concerned. Raise your hands if you have a question, or I don't know, pass a note forward, whatever it takes.
There's also a mic in the middle.
And there's a mic in the middle. So if you don't have a big annoying voice like I do, go to the mic and we'll be able to hear you better. Thanks, y'all.
All right, thanks, Andy. I am Meagan Duberstein. I work for the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and that is an agency that's under the U.S. Department of Agriculture. So I'm going to talk about some of our financial assistance programs. It's going to be a really quick speed run, but just know that we do have funding out there for organic farming, conventional farming, and all kinds of operations. All right, so what is NRCS? And I apologize, we use a ton of acronyms in our work, but we are, like I said, we're an agency that's under the Department of Agriculture, and our mission is to address resource concerns. So our motto is helping people help the land. That's our primary goal. So we are an agency of conservation professionals. We spend a lot of time learning about all sorts of different types of operations, forestry, dairy farms, cropland grazing, all those kinds of things. So we are happy to share our technical knowledge with you, and at the same time, we also provide that financial assistance. So to cover our three main programs, you're going to hear about these probably the most. So Environmental Quality Incentives Program, or lovingly called EQIP. It has nothing to do with equipment. This is one of our main programs. It's been around for decades. It's a very large funding opportunity. And I tend to call this kind of our introduction conservation program. You can come to us because you're seeing some kind of specific concern, or you just want to do some good improvements on your farm. You don't really know what the problem is, and you need some ideas and some suggestions. This is a great program to get you started through those things. They can be anywhere from a year-long contract to up to 10 years, and it focuses on those things that you need. And all of our programs, including this one, are voluntary. So we will give you thoughts on what we think would work for your operation. We're not going to force you into something that won't work for how you want to manage. But we talk with you about what would work, what would work with how you want to do things, and what's in your financial situation as well. So that's a great one to start with. And then we have the Regional Conservation Partnership Program, RCPP. It's very similar to EQIP. Same kind of rules, same type of opportunities, but these are projects done with partners, and one of those would be American Farmland Trust or Savannah Institute, and they come to us to work with us to provide more financial opportunities for specialty type projects, and those are all over the state and all over the country even. Same with EQIP. Every state has EQIP. And it's everywhere as an opportunity. The other big one we have is Conservation Stewardship Program. This one is somewhat new. We call it CSP. I would call this kind of the advanced conservation program we have. You've kind of started out figuring out, okay, I have a gully and you fixed it. You start using cover crops here and there, but you're not sure where you want to go next. This is that program that helps you go above and beyond that basic conservation work you've already been doing. And those are 5-year contracts with that financial assistance and that technical assistance. So with all of these, financial and technical assistance are options. You don't have to get into a contract with us. We can just give you technical advice. And none of these programs install the practice for you. So that is work you have to do, but we can give you advice on who to contact and how to get those things put in. So a little bit about that application process. We take applications all year. An application doesn't commit you to anything. I treat it as, when I was in the field, I kind of thought about it as like a work order. This person is interested in our programs. They want to do something with their farm. And all this application is collecting is contact information, where your farm is, so we can start working with you. There's an eligibility process and some paperwork. There's always paperwork with the government, but we'll help you work through that. And all of our staff are well-versed in that. Our staff is kind of a jack of all trades. And if we have specific issues like transitioning to organic, we work with our specialists. We'll hear one of them from today. So we bring in that expertise where it's needed, but we do have a lot of knowledge to share with you all. So applications year-round, even if you're not sure you want to do it for another couple of years, I would get that application in earlier the better. Our batching process, so what that means is an application deadline. Applications we receive to that date, we start going through our planning and ranking process for funding. That can take a while. We do it once a year, typically, maybe twice. So if you applied in June, you might not hear about anything till February. So just keep that in mind. It's a long planning process, but you're gonna know exactly what you're getting into before you sign anything that's actually a contract. You'll work with your local staff. And I have a slide that shows how you connect with them as well. Once we have the application, we've sorted through eligibility, kind of have an idea of what you're looking for. We do site visits, work through that planning process. Again, we're trying to figure out what works for you, what we can offer that fits your operation. We prioritize and rank everything. We fund as much as we can. Wisconsin is pretty notorious for always asking for more money because we like to fund as much as we can. So we do what we can. There are lots of special pots of money underneath all these programs. So you do hear terms like pollinator program or beginning farmer or organic. They're all funded under one of those three programs I mentioned earlier. So don't worry about knowing all those specifics. Just know where your office is and say, hey, I have this conservation need. Help me out. You don't need to know a practice. You don't need to know a program name or anything. You just need to know your operation. And then expectations of our participants. Because it's your operation and this is a voluntary program, you need to be active decision makers and communicate with us what you need. If there's something we're suggesting that you're not comfortable with, just be clear and tell us, no, I don't want to do that. That's okay. We're not going to be mad about it. But we need you to be communicating with us. If you do get into a contract with us, please note that it is a contract with the federal government. We try to be as flexible as we can with everything, but we do have rules we have to apply. And we'll work with you if we can. Generally, if something comes up, changes to farms happen, we know that. There's almost always a way we can work with things, get the contract canceled, transfer it to maybe your children are taking over the farm, we can transfer it to them, and all those things. So we can modify and change contracts, but we need to know if those changes come up. So communication is super important. And having realistic expectations, our staff will also help with that. I have had lots of people, they'll come in on their forest and maybe they had like 20 acres of buckthorn and they want to deal with 20 acres of buckthorn in a year. I don't know if any of you have done brush management, but 20 acres in a year is not fun. So we'll talk to them and be like, maybe you want to do 5 acres a year and then just do, 4 consecutive years of that or something. So we'll work with you on that kind of stuff too. We want these to be reasonable, obtainable contracts that help you because we're trying to help people help the land. And finally, this is our website. You can easily Google us by saying Wisconsin NRCS. That'll be the first link that comes up on our main page. This Find Your Service Center button is right there. You put in your state, your county, and it'll bring you the list of all of the USDA offices that are nearby, including NRCS. And the white dots on that map are where all of our offices are. So pretty much every county is serviced. As we get further north, there's a little less offices, but we have less giant, excuse me, less big farms when we're dealing more with forestry up there. All right, I will pass this on to Tom.
So Megan, before you leave, just a quick question, and I want to get some questions from the audience. We got a minute here. You mentioned some of those priority, I'm sorry, I'm not going to look at you, I'm going to look at the mic. So you mentioned some of those priority funding pools and those priority practices, and given that this is a competitive pool of applications, how does one find out about which of those things are going to be priority in the upcoming year?
Again, I would talk with your local office and just see their, we do put out a lot of news releases, and you can get on our email list if you're interested in reading all those articles. We do also post them on our website. And if you want to have a say in those things, we do host an annual public meeting called our local work group meeting. It's historically been in June. It's been in person, but we do take online comments. And that's a really good place to say, hey, I don't feel like we're getting, the coverage that we need for maybe this type of practice or this resource concern. So that's a really great way to put in some opinion. Talking with different other conservation professionals is also a good way to get that up to us. We have meetings all the time with different agencies and educational and conservation groups across the state to kind of figure out what's needed. But we try to cover a little bit of everything with as much as we can.
That's okay.
With my local office, the farm has been in a no-till cover crop conventional rotation. And, when I started having conversations, we're transitioning to organic, so I want to do a lot of things like expanding crop rotations, diversity in small grains, summer cover crop mixes, a lot of things that meet resource concerns, but I'm going to green manure. And, as soon as I talked about the introduction of tillage, it was almost like a non-starter. They weren't really keen on listening to some of my other resource concerns I was trying to expand, because I was going back to a spring tillage system, green manure, and that cover crop. What would your advice be to best communicate with the local NRCS offices that, rightfully so, they're dealing with a lot of conventional farmers that are really trying to push reduce tillage and really focus on resource concerns that reduce tillage?
Right. That's a really good question. I kind of mentioned it before. Our staff is a lot of jack of all trades. We have over 100 types of practices that we offer in most states. So it's a lot of things we need to know about. And we're not going to be, not every field staff is going to be fully versed in all of these things. And those kinds of, that rotation you're describing and including that green manure, while it's not new, it's still kind of new in the government world. So we're trying to adapt, but I would always say keep pushing those topics. If you're not able to get anywhere with your field staff because they aren't comfortable with it, there's nothing wrong with trying to reach out to the area office staff, and you can ask them for that information to say, hey, I'd be really interested in talking with your area resource staff to talk more about this. How can we make this more of an option? Because it is a very valid system, and it's just kind of getting to those right levels to make sure that we're doing the research that's needed to support that kind of a thing. And every state should be doing a local work group meeting. It might not be in June like we do ours, but that's also a place to do that public input. But I wouldn't hesitate to necessarily elevate your questions and your concerns beyond the field staff. You might want to let them know, just say, hey, I'm not trying to throw you under the bus, but this is really important to me, and I think it's something that needs to be looked at. Some offices are probably already doing that kind of stuff. They might be already have that niche knowledge on some of these things, and they're doing that naturally. But there are so many things and changes and operation types, it's hard for us to keep up, and that squeaky wheel gets the grease. So I wouldn't hesitate to bring that up to the area staff or even the state staff.
Thanks, Megan. You should go over. You're next. Thank you, Megan. There'll be more time for questions for Megan at the end as well, please. So just hold on to them if you've got them.
I will maybe just pick up on that question before I get started while it's all still up here. There is a built-in bias against tillage in the conventional no-till world for sure, and I know that we sometimes default to conventional no-till as the be-all, end-all in terms of controlling erosion and building soil organic matter. But I think every one of us in this room that farms organically knows that well-managed organic systems can do that better than anything else. And so, if you want to reach out to me directly, I can give you some contact information. There are some really well-versed folks in NRCS, in the organic world, in just about every state, and we also have some folks working nationally through the Organic Transition Initiative that can probably help answer some of those questions too. So.
Who are you, Tom?
Okay, I'm Tom Manley. I'm the Conservation Director at Marbleseed, and I also work, as my primary role, I'm the Organic Conservation Specialist for the state of Wisconsin. So I support NRCS staff and farmers as we navigate conservation planning on organic farms. All right, I always like to start with just a quick discussion of the alignment between the rules that we operate under on our farms, the National Organic Program standards, and how well they align with and parallel our objectives in the conservation world. The NOP states matter-of-factly that we must maintain or improve the natural resources of our operation. I am always amazed at, I guess, what I just consider the underutilization of NRCS support on organic farms, because it really, truly is a perfect fit. And if we approach it through the right lens, and it's a lens I hope to talk about here today, I can't think of a single good reason not to work with NRCS, especially if we're transitioning producers or we're coming from conventional production and really trying to get our head around the management changes necessary to succeed in organic. That is a perfect time to work with conservation planners, develop a relationship, and build that conservation right into your farm from the beginning. But which one am I pushing here? Am I pointing over here or what? Sorry.
You should be able to point it
Okay.
and press the right button.
There it is. Just some more examples that I think were relevant for most of the kinds of farmers that are with us here today. We have to implement crop rotations that are diverse and that include cover crops. We've always done this. I mean, cover cropping is kind of newer in the conventional world, but it's certainly not anything that we in the organic community haven't been doing for a very long time. It's always been one of our strategies, in addition to longer and more diverse crop rotations and the use of green manures. So the NOP spells out what we have to do in that respect. And that seems like a perfect opportunity to work with NRCS to plan a conservation crop rotation that can help us do that, or to look very specifically at our nutrient management or our pest management strategies and start building those things into our management from the beginning as we transition. We all know we have to have buffers. We have to maintain buffers around our farms, and the standards don't spell out any specifics of what that buffer needs to be, just that it needs to be sufficient to deal with the potential threat for contamination from neighboring operations. So this is a perfect opportunity to plan a field border or a hedgerow or filter strips. There are a number of NRCS conservation practices that we can apply and use as buffers and have stacked benefits. We can be creating wildlife corridors, and we can be filtering runoff. We can be creating pollinator habitat as part of our pest management strategy, and we can build these things right into our organic systems plan from the beginning through transition, and not only satisfy the needs of our certifier and their concerns about whether or not we're meeting these criteria in the organic standards, but be able to show them a fully developed conservation plan, a management level, systems level conservation plan that clearly spells out that we're doing these things on our farms and that we are stacking those benefits. We are improving the environment. We need to minimize soil erosion. We can do that lots of ways with longer rotations, with cover cropping, with good nutrient management. So we know we can't use synthetic nitrogen. We can't be doing those things. So we have to be looking to build soil in other ways. And we know that we do it on our farms, despite the fact that we maybe use a little more tillage in some cases than you're going to find in a conventional no-till system. We do all strive to minimize tillage. This whole conference, in large part, is about the efforts that are underway to reduce the impacts that our tillage has. But we've always been careful about the tools we choose and the timing that we choose for those tillage events. And I've seen more than enough evidence to convince me that well-managed organic production meets those objectives. It keeps soil on the landscape. If we do all the things we need to do, and it's all going to be site-specific. Where if we're farming, if we're row cropping in the driftless, we're going to want to be looking at contour strips and things like that. We're going to want to be making sure that we're doing everything we can to keep soil, on our farms. And there is no better partner to help us do that than NRCS. And I know this because, in addition to my role, I'm also a farmer. And the reason I'm excited about being in this role is because I know the impact that working with NRCS has had on my farm. The fact is I couldn't be doing the things I'm doing if it wasn't for the support that I got initially through EQIP. So this is probably the thing that many of you are in the room to hear about. There's been lots of buzz about it for the last 18 months or so. It is the interim conservation practice standard for organic management. It's generally referred to as 823. I wouldn't get too caught up on that 823 because if and when this becomes a permanent standard, and we certainly all hope it does, that 823 number will change. So I always try to talk about it in terms of what it is and what it hopes to do, and that is organic management. But it is interim. We're in our technically, I think, third year of the interim status. It is the primary means of financial support that was made available through the Organic Transition Initiative. So there's the TOP program, the Transition to Organic Partnership Program. There's some things that are managed through RMS and that agency within USDA about marketing pieces and crop insurance and some of those other pieces. The NRCS leg of that stool is this OTI funding for largely to support producers who are exclusively to support producers who are transitioning, but largely to help fund 823 planning and implementation on transitioning farms. And 823 is not really a standalone practice. It's intended to be a systems approach that aligns as closely as possible with the development of your organic systems plan. So in a perfect world, we're using the planning for organic management to help inform the development of our organic systems plan and really kind of fill in the details of how we're managing pests and weeds and what our nutrient management looks like. Some things that 823 is not, and there has been some confusion about this. 823 is not a payment for being organic. It is specifically funding to help us change the way we manage on our farms and address resource concerns that have been identified through the planning process. I think we would all like for there to be an ecosystem services type payment for being organic. It might be warranted. That's a conversation for another time. That is not what 823 is. It is, again, that RMS, that resource management system level conservation plan that helps us be better farmers. And this, I stress this every time I get a chance to talk about 823, because for 823 to work on our farms, organic management, I'm doing it, I'm sorry, it's organic management, it's not 823. For that practice to work, we really have to embrace the conservation planning process. So this is the 9 steps of the conservation planning process. They're all important, but what we're trying to do through the planning for that organic management standard is get through those first seven practices. And this is a pointer. What usually ends up happening is we all get an email in our inbox about warning us that the EQIP sign-up deadline is 3 or 5 days away, and hurry up and get an application in. And like Megan said, we can take an application any time of year. Sooner is always better. But what ends up happening is we're jumping right here to step 8. We've bypassed all these first 7 steps, and we're going right to step 8 of the process. And that has a few impacts. It forces us to go back and do this work, but we have to do it in a way that is now condensed into an artificial timeline that's based on like when we're batching and when we have to have everything ranked and when we have to have everything obligated. And we're no longer in a position to devote the attention we need to those first 7 steps. That's where the real value is in all of this. The cost share is important. We all benefit from the cost share. I don't want to suggest that isn't also a reason to do this. But the things we learn in that planning process have as much or more value for us long term on our farms. And if we jump right here to the application step, we end up compromising the quality of our applications. And it's not because everyone involved isn't trying to do the best job and isn't trying to input the information they have at that point, but we aren't in a position to submit an application for a contract or contracts that are really reflective of the practices we hope to ultimately implement on that farm. And if we can do that planning work and get to step 7 where we've made decisions about what practices we feel we're best prepared to implement on our farms in a timely manner, then we can submit an application that includes all of those practices. We know exactly the resource concerns we're addressing on that farm. That application ranks better. We have a better opportunity, better chance of getting funded, and we're going to accomplish a whole lot more. So I just want to encourage everyone to embrace these steps. Those are the ones where that's where the magic is. Just some couple of different ways that we can approach these things, and
Just so you know, that's 10 minutes.
oh well, I can.
I don't want
Okay,
you to stop.
I'll speed up a little. I'm sorry. There's a couple of ways we can go at this. Especially if we're working with a transitioning producer, there's the opportunity to work with staff planners, NRCS staff from your local field office who can come out, work with you to identify those resource concerns, help you make decisions about what practices make sense to implement, or you can work with a TSP, a technical service provider, who is someone who has the training and the job approval to write those conservation plans, but they often work for organizations, many of whom are here, that do technical assistance with farmers anyway. So there's a lot of partnership agreements that NRCS has that allows for TSPs to be kind of spread across the landscape. We are a little short on folks who are prepared to write good transition to organic plans. We're working on that, and in the interim, if anybody is looking to do that, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer anyone's individual questions about what that transition planning might look like. But again, what we're hoping for here is separate lanes with the same goals and that we end up in the same place, no matter how we approach the planning. Again, I don't need to go too far into this again. There's a couple of ways we can do this. We can do what's called a CPA 138, which is a conservation planning activity for transition to organic. If you work with a TSP, you end up with that conservation plan, which we can then apply potentially for a contract for 823. Or we can work with staff and do that planning work, again, hopefully ending up in exactly the same place. But this is the important thing. If we can get that planning work done on the front end before we apply, we're all going to be better off. Those are the 5 steps to working with NRCS. Once we get this one done, the rest of these go really smoothly and pretty quickly. That's a resource I want to share with everybody. I've got some copies. I'll have it at the Marbleseed booth downstairs as well. This is a pre-office visit checklist that I think is really helpful. If it's the first time you've ever really worked with NRCS, or specifically if you're considering organic management as something you might think is a good fit for your farm, just some questions you can answer before you go in that'll be really, really helpful for staff. I got copies here, and again, more downstairs. What I'm hoping are takeaways here, that organic farming and conservation just absolutely belong together. No matter what your organic status is, you can be certified, you can be transitioning, you can be exempt. There are ways to work with NRCS to make your operation better and more profitable. NRCS planners want what's best for your farm. You are always the decision maker. You decide what practices make sense on your farm and what practices you want to contract for. No one's going to twist your arm. No one's going to make you do anything you aren't contracting yourself to do. And they want to help you. They truly do. I mean, everyone I've ever worked with in NRCS has my best interest in mind. And if you're considering transition to certified production, there simply has never been a better time. Don't hesitate. There's more support now than there's ever been through TOP, through NRCS. We've just some resources we've got downstairs. We've got guidebooks to walk folks through the basics of certification step by step. some NRCS resources related specifically to organic. I've got copies of the Organic Management Standard. I am happy to sit down with anyone and answer any questions you have. I know we have a roundtable later today too, so please ask.
So any quick questions? I'll start. Megan and Tom, you guys are the experts in this. Does NRCS have a BAB? A big-ass acronym book? That'd be helpful for everyone. But like, okay, so quick questions for Tom. All right.
Wow.
Cool. You stunned him.
I guess.
No, wait, we'll be here through the end for Q&A as well. Kaleb, you get to go next. We're going to talk about Climate Smart.
So I'm Kaleb Ortner. I'm with Marbleseed. I'm the organic agronomy specialist working on the Climate Smart and then also on the TOP program as well. I guess I say I'm based out of Michigan, so if anything at Climate Smart is going to be in Michigan, Northern Ohio, Indiana, that's probably going to be me. But we do have several other partners, depending on your location, that they might be your contact person that's going to be working with you as well. I guess I want to say, just kind of reiterate off the last two, go and talk to your USDA office and go in there and get as much information as you can. I use them readily on my personal farm too, so. So I guess I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about I'm going to go into Marbleseed's program specifically, but I wanted to start with kind of what the Climate Smart program is and kind of how it started. So we all know that there's problems with greenhouse gases and the environmental problems that are going on there, and there's several companies and individuals that want to be more climate friendly and kind of take those approaches. So that's kind of what this originally started as, and the USDA saw it, and we know that a lot of people say that farming may be the cause of some of this greenhouse gases and problems that are coming up, but we also want to acknowledge that we might be part of the solution through this, taking on these conservation practices and looking into that. So the USDA has invested about $3 billion into this program. There's 140 projects across the United States. They range from about $250,000 as some of the smaller ones up to $90 million for these projects. And the majority of this money is going directly to the producer, whether that be in technical support or whether it be in implementing the practices or I guess I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit because our Marbleseeds program is primarily going to be in organic row crops, but we also want to tell or promote that there's other ones that we might not be a direct fit for you, but there is other programs. So just kind of last night I kind of got a general idea of what states are all represented here. So I wanted to talk about there's a lot of these projects cover multiple states. So there's 18 projects in Wisconsin. There's 27 in Minnesota, 22 in Illinois, 26 in Indiana, 27 in Iowa, 25 in Michigan, and 23 in Ohio. So we kind of get, if our program's not a direct fit, that there is other Climate Smart programs that might be a fit for you. And we're not just talking about organic row crops. There's 31 projects that work just like with livestock. There's 11 with dairies, and then there's 9 for small grains, 19 for corn and soybeans, and 42 for fruits, vegetables, and specialty crops. So yeah, that's, I guess, we don't fit, there's other options out there. And then I guess also after today, if this group doesn't give you enough information on funding opportunities, there's a couple places like Ambrook has a great page of different funding opportunities. And then there's a Conservation Connector that maybe is not a Climate Smart program, but there's other opportunities for funding. So I guess kind of the main point here is what we want to do with this Climate Smart money is we want to incentivize people to take on these new practices and approach it. So we're basically offering you money to take on a new practice. So last night we talked a lot about no-till soybeans and corn. Maybe you want to take on this idea and start working on it, that we can hopefully kind of offset some of the risk by giving you a little bit of funding for that project. So then I guess what are we looking back for this money? We are going to be trying to take a little bit of data off of this to see if we're making a difference. And then that's going to probably primarily be in soil sampling. For our project, I don't know what some of the other groups are doing, and then we're also going to be looking at the like what farmers have to say about it, what differences are they seeing on their farm, and so on. So, but then I guess what happens when this money runs out, I guess I didn't write down the exact date when it ends, but we want to make sure that people continue to do these practices. So we are also building marketing opportunities to try and get a premium for climate smart commodities. So for Marbleseed's program specifically, we're looking for certified organic row crops. And then kind of what you have to do from there is you got to be registered with the FSA and have a subsidiary print so that we can make sure that there is, like we know all your information, and then we can also make sure you're not involved in any other NRCS programs. We don't want to double dip in multiple programs, I guess is kind of what we're going for there. And then for our program specifically, those are the states that we cover. And yeah, like I said, depending on which location you're on, depending which group you'll be working with. So our program is going to be $5,000 annually for the practices, regardless of what it is. So we kind of begin it off we go through a little questionnaire. We're going to do primarily the paperwork for you. We're just going to ask you a bunch of questions. So, and once you take on the project and we come on and verify it, you're going to get additional $2,500. That's going to be $5,000 total. But we're going to start with that $1,500 after signing the initial contract and getting the initial information, $2,500 after the practice is implemented, and then we're going to do $1,000 after we get our feedback after we're going to do a questionnaire. Oh yeah, and I guess there it says that it can be renewed until 2028. So that's when the money is kind of allocated till. And then other benefits that you get out of it, I would come out for Michigan, Northern Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and you'll get technical assistance along the way. If you have any questions or anything you want to try or any input, we're here to help you and give you the information that we know. And if we need to redo some more research, we can help you with that. So, and then also each group has their own field days, and grower summits is what we're calling them. The first one this year is going to be at OFA, and we're covering your cost for registration for these programs. So if you would want to go to any of these conferences, we'll cover the cost for that. So these are some of the practices that we have. There's a whole bunch of them, and I'm not going to go into every detail because it's a lot of information. It's basically all the NRCS, and we're just following along with them. So I guess the main ones that we've focused on this last year have been cover crops, reduced tillage and management. We did some no-till soybeans. I think next year we got an alley cropping, and I don't remember what the other one is. But we have all the information. We can work through you, and if we don't, we will work with somebody that knows the information a little bit better to get you what you need. So kind of what the expectations of what we would see. It takes about an hour or two to kind of get that initial information in that first interview. And then after that, you just got to give us permission to come out and soil sample. We're going to send all that information back to you as well, as long as taking it for our information. And it's usually once a year is what we're kind of aiming for. We're going to start with an initial baseline and then where you're at the end. So, and then we're working together, talking to each other. Okay, and then I guess the next one's on this page. So how are we different from like the NRCS programs? We talked about how you had to have an application process before and all that. The Climate Smart program, as long as you fit within our criteria, you're eligible for it. You don't have to sit there and wait for an application to come back. So. And then, yeah, again, in the end, we wanted to go back and look at the marketing side of it. And that's kind of mainly what O-Farm's part in the project is to go look into expanding markets into this climate smart commodities. So then last thing I have here is kind of a flow chart of if you're interested in our program, we got this, and then if other options, if you are interested in. So I'll just leave that up for a second if there's any quick questions here.
You got those at your table too?
I didn't print very many copies of those, so I have one copy, but I can get you some more copies if you can just send me your email. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're in the organic nutrition process, are you eligible to apply, or is it just already fully certified?
We are, I'm not 100% positive on that. Yes, we are taking people that are in the transition process, from my understanding. I don't know if Tom has any more feedback on that. That's my,
I think it would probably depend on where you are in the process.
Yeah.
If you are managing organically and you just haven't got the certificate yet, then you might be eligible. But we are primarily targeting certified operations. But we'll have a conversation afterward, and you can kind of tell us a little more about like where you're at in that process. There's a good chance if you're not using any prohibited substances at this point, and you're partway into that transition process, and you're just waiting to finish, then I think you might very well be eligible.
yeah.
Does it matter the size? Like if someone with 20 acres, do they do the same amount as someone that wanted to do like 500 acres?
No, there is no size requirement. So this is regardless of what size you are, that's the payment that you're going to get. So
Is it a competitive pool of funding? I know you said there's no ranking, but like, is the money gonna run out at a certain point? Like, how do you?
we do have some allocated funds, but right now we're extremely short on participants. I think we need some more outreach. So we're kind of really amping up outreach this year. So right now, no, there's not a whole lot of competition. So.
Right here first, folks.
Yeah, minimal competition, they're gonna do paperwork for you. I mean, boy, okay, good.
So I have two questions. So when can you, like, have multiple practices and get paid $5,000 multiple times, or is it one thing a year?
It's one thing a year, from my understanding.
Okay, but you could do like back-to-back years, different practices.
Yes.
Okay. So then my other question is and then I realize you might not be the person to answer this question because you're not from Oak Farm, but when it comes to like the marketing piece, you know, a lot of those practices are like not necessarily crop related. They're like full farm
Yep.
practices. So when you're talking about climate smart commodities and marketing those commodities or like those products, it might just, is it just like from those climate smart products?
Yes, it's going to be products that are produced by farms that use climate smart practices.
Who is like the person to talk to about that stuff? Is somebody here?
I don't know is Lonnie going to be here? Or?
No, I don't think anybody who's directly working on the project from Oak Farm is with us here.
How about at Marbleseed?
Yes, for sure.
If you are participating in another climate smart commodity program on an acre, can you do a separate practice on an acre
It's
and qualify?
That's kind of the gray area right now. There is
You guys
people.
are good at finding stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the USDA is starting to crack down on that a little bit, but right now I don't think there is anything that says you can't do that. But yes. So
What you can get is duplicate payments for the same practice on the same acre.
yeah.
So I'm already enrolled in the top program, and I'd like to talk to my NRCS office about the 823 program. So as long as I don't maintain the same practice I'm doing under top, I'm good, or can I, how does that work?
The climate smart program.
You probably won't understand what this is.
Yeah.
So I'm probably similar to the gentleman in the back, because,
My recommendation is don't talk about climate smart when you're.
yeah, okay.
And they'll both, I mean, there are checks in both places to make sure that we aren't paying twice for the same practice on the same acre. So that's really the concern.
Okay.
So there is an opportunity, if you had a contract for 823, there would be practices that were supporting practices for that organic management plan. As long as you're not enrolling in climate smart for any of those same practices on the same acres. So there are some, it's complicated because there's so many practices and there's so many ways to come at this. It's about the resource concerns we've identified, which particular purpose you're pointing to in any practice standard, why you're applying that practice on those acres. So these are somewhat complicated questions, but happy to help you kind of navigate your way through it.
That's why I keep looking over to Tom, because he's the NRCS guy that's going to know more of that about than me.
Thank you, Caleb.
Yep.
You can clap. Go ahead. It's all right. No rules saying you can't. All right. Thanks for tolerating me, y'all. I'm over caffeinated, so I'm talking too much. I'm Andy Larson. I work with the Food Finance Institute. We're headquartered here in Madison. We are a small shop of food and farm business consultants. And how did I get qualified to be a consultant? Because somebody started calling me that and I didn't argue with them, right? So we work with entrepreneurs in all different parts of the food sector. Myself and Anna Thomas, we are the main folks in the farm lane. And Tara Johnson, when we can get her attention, we're all working in the value-added agriculture space. And you can imagine that as a farm business consultant, the first question we get is always, is there a grant for X, Y, or Z? And the answer right now is actually yes. So I want to talk about a couple of grant opportunities, one in brief, one in a little bit more depth. If you hadn't heard already, y'all, the notice of funding availability for the value added producer grants, the VAPGs, dropped last Friday. So if you are a producer of raw commodity and you're turning that into a value-added good, there is the opportunity to write a grant for up to $250,000 from the federal government. It is a big one. It is also a difficult one. A lot of people engage grant writers to do that. It is absolutely not required. And the new thing this year is they've gone to a fully online application portal, and we all know that the USDA has never had any snafus with online stuff, right? Okay, so that's out there. I want you to be aware of that one. It's a really good one. I also want you to be thinking about some of the other opportunities that you got. I'm a planning first kind of person. When you're thinking about a project that you're trying to fund and finance, think about the different elements of that project, know what you want to do, when you want to grow it, how much capital it's going to take, and then when these funding opportunities come down the pipe, match make it for part of that project. So value-added producer grants is only for value-added processes, right? There's no production element in that, and it can't be used for equipment. However, this little thing that I'm going to be talking about here probably can be used for equipment. So I want you to have the idea of what you want to do, and then, you know, when these opportunities come down the pipe, you'll be ready to tell the story about the whole thing that you're trying to do and how to leverage funds from different sources. Okay, that's how to get in touch with me. That phone number is not my phone number, but it rings in my pocket somehow. I don't know how, the vagaries of the University of Wisconsin technology. How many people here have heard of the regional food business centers? A smattering of people. How many people have heard of Business Builder Awards? A slightly larger smattering of people. Okay, good to know. There are 12 regions around the country and an intertribal food business center that's servicing the entire country. They each got a big pool of funds from the feds with the idea of doing a couple things that we'll talk about in just a minute. But the part that is covering Wisconsin, ooh, do we have a clapper? I don't know, I kind of like it. All right, so the region that's covering Wisconsin is called the Great Lakes Midwest Regional Food Business Center. Oh, that's perfect, right there. I love it. Thank you so much for leaning against the panel. That's wonderful. Each of these regional food business centers has got a couple of different charges, and one of those charges is to make available several rounds of funding to food and farm entrepreneurs. You may have heard from friends in Minnesota or Iowa or the Dakotas or other parts of the country that this business builder thing already rolled out and they already got a grant and they're already reporting on it. Yes, it has, but it hasn't happened here yet. It's on its way. Really, really soon. But you can imagine. So Michigan State University is the lead project on this, and a big land-grant university talking to the USDA about money gets into some discussions. Red tapey stuff. So the RFBCs are here, and you can read this. I'm not going to read it directly, but really the point of this is to coordinate the technical assistance that's going to our food and farm entrepreneurial sector, especially targeting some of those underserved and underrepresented audiences and make some opportunities to flesh out our value-added local food and ag value chains in order to get some money in entrepreneurs' hands in order to level up their businesses. The legislation says that the grants can be maxed out at $100,000. Many regional food business centers are splitting that up so that you can apply multiple times for $50,000 each, whatever. So they're just trying to exactly put a cap on what the awards can look like. But that capacity building is going to come in the form of probably $50,000 grants that in this first round, farmers are going to be applying for. More details on that in just a moment. I want you to be aware that they are going to be sub-awards from Michigan State University. So you do get to be in bed with a land grant from over across the pond. And that's okay. They're very thorough and they're very detail-oriented, and there's going to be very specific ways that you have to work with them and the USDA in order to get your money. Hey, we've talked about paperwork, right? I deal with farmers and paperwork all the time. I know it's your favorite thing. What's a little bit more? Okay. I named this slide this very intentionally. What I think I know about the Business Builder Awards in our region, the Great Lakes Midwest Regional Food Business Center. First and foremost, they're still working out the particulars. They wanted to make the notice of funds availability available in November. It's almost February. It's coming soon. The farmers are the target audience for the round that's going to be first coming through. It is going to be a post-harvest emphasis. So it's not going to be money for production practices. It's going to be money for processing. It's going to be money for marketing. It's going to be money for all of that other stuff, the further links in the value chain. So you're not probably going to buy a tractor, but you might be able to buy a reefer or a walk-in or some of those other things that further the marketing capacity of your value-added agriculture business. There is going to be an emphasis on the underserved populations. We know darn well that what that means is in flux right now. We'll let you know when we know, but that has been the emphasis for since the inception of this program, is to make sure some of these underbanked, underserved, underrepresented communities are more, they're better financed participants in the overall chain. Sub-awards, like I mentioned, likely to be $50,000, could be a little bit more if they decide that they want folks to be able to apply for multiple rounds. And this is the unique thing. You guys saw RFSI come through last year or 2 years ago. Somebody remind me what it stands for?
Regional Food Systems Infrastructure.
That, Regional Food Systems Infrastructure. It was an equipment-oriented grant. What's hard to come by when you're applying for a grant? Equipment! Yay! So this is a neat thing. It's going to be one of those outliers of what's normally available through federal grants. Equipment is basically anything that costs over $5,000 and winds up being a depreciable asset on your balance sheet. Okay? So it could be, in this circumstance, focused on the post-harvest element. Something that is doing, food safety, something that is doing vegetable processing, something that is doing, distribution and marketing, all those different types of equipment that sometimes we don't think as much about when we're producing. We got to think about what we can do for value-added marketing, improving the value chain for what it is that we're growing. The thing that they're not excited about in these discussions is that, like many federal grants, this is likely to be a cost reimbursement grant. Okay, so a cost reimbursement grant when you're buying one $50,000 doohickey is a lot different than a cost reimbursement grant when you're spending small pools of operating capital over the course of a couple years. So many of us are going to have to get our financial poop in a group and talk to a bank or a non-bank financial institution or Rich Uncle Charlie or whatever to be able to have some cash in hand at the beginning in order to get into this thing and then apply for the reimbursement for it. Okay? It does not lend itself well to serving the populations that this program is trying to serve, which is why they're kind of pissed about it. But it is one of those policy things that they're fighting with the federal government, and it kind of doesn't look like a fight they're going to win right now. So we are actively in conversation with a couple of financial institutions to see if they will provide bridge funding, guarantees, some of those other things that spread the risk when you're, getting into bed with accountants at Michigan State. To be a competitive applicant in this pool, it is going to be important to tell a good story. It is going to be important to talk about community. It's going to be important to talk about values. It's going to important to talk about the underserved nature of what it is that you're trying to improve. So all of those things are going to be essential to kind of standing out, because this is going to be a popular program. There are a lot of RFSI applications that went unfunded last year that are going to be quickly repurposed and thrown into this application pool. So there's going to be a lot of people who are already prepared with a project too. So be very aware of how to be competitive in this applicant pool and start figuring out how you can throw that $50,000 on the barrelhead right now in order to get into your reimbursement in the not too distant future. These are the different network coordinators. These are the people that you can ask detailed questions about. I'm also going to give you a little bit of inside baseball. Some of the details remain murky. There is not an application that I can point you to online right now. I know, it's annoying. I had to teach about how to apply for this grant before the application ever came out. Like, I get it, it's annoying. But it is going to be available coming pretty soon. I do want you to keep your eyeballs on the Regional Food Business Center's website for the Great Lakes Midwest region. Get on their mailing list. You will get notified about when this thing opens up. People will be shouting it from the rooftops. We will be communicating with all of our partner organizations. It's going to be kind of like MASK, right? Like, I don't know exactly how you're going to hear about it, but you're very likely to hear about it. Cool? Anything else that people want to know before I sit down and shut up? Well, I won't actually shut up, but I'll sit down. Yeah.
Like this is in process, right? I know there was a federal pause on all, legislation that hasn't been fully passed. Like the 45Z tax credit's now paused. Is this something that's kind of in that same category, or is this guaranteed funding that is progressing on?
Is anything guaranteed right now? I don't have I can't tell you that anything's guaranteed. I can tell you that it's been in process for a long time and that it's highly likely to happen, and that there's probably a few small details that are going to wind up changing to make sure that we don't get in hot water with anybody. But I can't call it guaranteed, but I can call it pretty darn likely. Is that good enough? That's the best I can do. Oh, like to hire a grant writer to do this? That is not something I'm aware of at this time. I am pretty well networked with grant writers. If you want to reach out to me, a lot of them have got their dance card pretty full with value-added producer grant applications right now. So the timing isn't perfect in that regard. I can make some referrals. That's the best I can do. I don't know of any dollars and cents that we can throw at them. As a matter of fact, I think I'd have to have somebody tell me who is a professional grant writer, but there's some professional ethics practices that they try to make sure that they're not violating when they're doing this stuff, including taking money out of your grant. So in all likelihood, it will be some upfront cost if you are going to hire a grant writer to do it. If you have to choose between hiring a grant writer to write a $250,000 VAPG or a $50,000 Business Builder Award, write the Business Builder Award yourself. You can do it. I'm confident. I believe in you. Will's up next. Thank you, guys.
My name's Will Glazik. I'm an organic farmer in Illinois. We have about 800 acres of row crop, and then Dad has some livestock. We also decided to start a distillery with my siblings. So I got this thing. It's just part of being a farmer. I think we all understand it, where we are always asset rich rich and completely cash poor. So I've tried to find some unique funding ways to really bootstrap a business that's supposed to eventually start paying for itself one of these days. Specifically, so Andy set me up really well. We have in the past applied for the Value Added Producer Grant. It is a lot of work. We did hire a grant writer for that one. And yeah, we were not awarded. It's really competitive. But there are a bunch of USDA grants that come up every once in a while that are typically under applied for, that can range from equipment to energy to lots of different things. And to do that, you need to start with, you got to be registered through the USDA website, and you got to fill out a bunch of forms. So if anybody's interested, get that set up now, and kind of once you have a template, then it makes it a lot easier to apply for these grants as they come up. I specifically want to talk about the Red Leg program. This is one we found out about from a farmer in Iowa who's putting in an oat mill. And there's a whole wide range of this. It's a really unique, and what I learned, nearly completely underserved program where the USDA funnels money through the rural electric co-ops. And then the electric co-ops can apply for the grant through the USDA, which is a seed grant. And then they loan that money on a revolving loan fund to the farmers. And this can be it is a loan, but it's a stupidly low interest loan. I think it was like 0.9% interest or something over a 10-year period. They're really, really flexible with you. And it can go down, it's for rural economic development. We used it for our distillery to hire contractors and employees to get things kicked off. So as long as you're bringing people a job, you're allowed to apply for this. You can go down to, I think, as low as $10,000 and up to multi-million dollars, depending on the scale of the project. We did have to go through all your typical financial stuff like you would with the bank, so your financial statement, personal guarantees, that kind of stuff. And then it went to the board for approval of the co-op. But really, it was straightforward. Our electric co-op had done one in the past. We're with Eastern Illini Electric Co-op. If anyone wants to reach out and have questions, I can get you in touch with the program manager. It was a really straightforward process. They had done one 12 years prior, but they hadn't. So this is just wide open. And there's lots of money sitting on the table ready to be utilized. And I think if anyone was looking for $50,000 or less, this is a fantastic program, and it'll be really easy to get some of the money. Highly recommend that one. We're very fortunate to have a pretty awesome local bank, and they've been wonderful working with us. They actually came to us and told us that there is some economic, what was it? Anyways, they had a pool of money that it was like $10,000, $12,000 that they wanted to give to a business to help grow the community. So that was just right through the bank that we're already working with. And I didn't know about it. They came to us about it. I'm sure these kind of programs are with lots of small town banks. So I would highly encourage to talk to your banker about that. The Frontera Foundation grant, this one is awesome and super easy. It's only a 2-page application. It's for farmers in Chicago region. I think it's within 150, 200 miles-ish that are selling food into the Chicago area. It's up to $12,000, and this is another one that's for equipment. The reporting on it is very easy also. So you have like 2 or 3 check-ins a year with a final write-up at the end. And you can apply multiple years even if you're awarded. So this one has been extremely helpful. I recommend it to anybody.
Me too. I got one.
Yeah. Easy process, right?
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah. So if you're within spitting distance of Chicago, you're probably qualified.
Right. Oh, and then TIF fund. So, and here's another interesting way and Andy talked about this a little bit with the program he was talking about, but leveraging grant funds against a loan. So this is a way that you can stretch that out a little bit and kind of work with your bank until you can get the refund on it. So again, at the distillery, we applied for the TIF. This is within Paxton proper. And then, let's see, they gave us some money over a period of time. Well, we took out a loan against the total amount, but then the city is going to then pay off that loan over the 5-year period or whatever it is. So then so we're just paying the interest on that money rather than the whole interest and principal. And then SARE, at least in Illinois, SARE is a really nice way to get some funds to do some research and development. So the farmer rancher grants, in Illinois, they're again under competitive. Not too many people are applying for them in the local food sector. And these are a nice way if you want to try something new or trial. They're smaller grants and they're smaller research projects, but they're very focused and very approachable for a farmer. But because some of these grants, the reporting on them sucks. There's all kinds of stuff that goes on the back end. Like once you get awarded some of these things, then you got to keep up with it.
VAPGs especially.
Yeah, right.
The farmer rancher grants are 40 grand.
For a team.
Yep.
For a team. Yeah, I think it's 15 individual and 40 for a team. Teams are going to be much more likely to get awarded. And that's the other thing. Once you kind of figure out where your niche is within a certain area, then you got a template and you can copy and paste. And it might take a year or two to get things kind of figured out, but then a lot of the grants are asking for similar things. That's all I got. Any questions? Yeah.
For the TIF, so your distillery is inside a city limits?
Correct. Yep.
Is that possible like in a county or outside of the city or no? I'm not familiar with TIFs, that's familiar.
I don't know the answer to that. I'm assuming it varies state by state.
Okay.
But I'm assuming it also is generally part of a municipality.
Gotcha.
You guys ever heard of counties using TIF? Don't know.
Do I need to explain how TIF works? Okay. A TIF is...
We got other questions.
Right.
We got about 10 minutes, y'all, and we're going to kind of open this up here. So if you got questions for Will, ask them. If you got questions for the rest of us, ask us too, okay?
Basically, the city or the municipality will put some kind of cap on taxes of a certain area, but then they take a portion of that tax and they use it as grants to start new or fund other businesses to try to increase the tax base. So over time, the whole tax base increases, but for us, it was a really critical startup funding piece.
For the REDLG, does the physical business have to be within a rural electric co-op region, or?
No. So our farm is on rural electric, and I guess we have 4 sites on the co-op, but our distillery is in town on a different service. So no.
Okay, cool. So we're open up to everybody, so go ahead and ask us questions. I work for Sarah a little bit too. I just want to put a finer point on this is really research and outreach is what Sarah does. So again, it's one of those things where if you got these different parts of a project, it works really good to save some money that you would otherwise have been spending on research, you would have otherwise been spending on operating costs or whatever. Those funds that you save can then go towards that thing that you don't have a grant opportunity to write against, like a piece of equipment or a piece of infrastructure or whatever. Do you, Eileen back there, do you know how to lean on that thing and make the lights go up again? Thank you. I don't know her actual name. Any other questions for the entire group about funding, financing, about the stuff we've talked about something completely unrelated? We're supposed to go until 20 after, Mickey, is that
Yes.
correct? Okay, cool. So we got a little bit of time. What do you guys want to dig into?
I'll just make a comment on the business builder thing.
Yeah.
I'm in Ohio, so I'm in the Appalachian region, and I applied for that, and the online application is very easy, at least to get through. So mine went through, I didn't get, obviously I'm not awarded yet, but I didn't get rejected right away, so fingers crossed.
Cool, good.
I don't know if yours will be the same or not.
Well, I don't want to go to the extent of saying that if you can fog up a mirror, you can apply, but it's pretty, we were trying to make it as accessible to as many people as possible. What other questions are out there, you guys? Allie?
So you guys represent, well, lots of things, but nonprofits, but then also, you know, the government. And as Andy said, like, we can't really guarantee anything. But when we're talking about, like, talking to your NRCS office and putting in an application, I don't know, like with the new Farm Bill and the new administration, how much time, because it does take time and energy to do those things, like, are we going to be wasting our time? Is it better? I don't know. I'm thinking about, like, should we go to, like, nonprofits? Is that funding pretty well guaranteed, and then more?
You can imagine many of the nonprofits are getting funds from the feds
It's
too.
the government
though.
too, right, so it's like.
So can I'll do a short answer and then I'll let people expound upon it. A lot of these programs have been going for a really long time.
Yeah.
NRCS has been making EQIP cost shares for a really long time. The value-added producer grants have been available for a couple decades at this point. So there's many of these things that have a long, tried and true history with a lot of successes associated with them. So I would anticipate that the appetite for doing away with things that have got all of that good media around them is probably pretty low. What do you folks think?
On the hot seat right now.
The government?
I would agree with that. These things have been around a really long time. I don't see EQIP, CSP, RCPP going away. Farm Bill, we get a new one of those ideally every 4 years. It takes time, so it's not the first time we have run our programs through continuing resolutions. It didn't mean we lost money. We just have to be a little bit more conscious about the decisions we're making because we're borrowing ahead essentially, and that's fine. That's nothing new to us. So I would still keep working through the planning processes on things. So when the next sign up is coming, you're ready.
Yes, I would second that. I mean, the thing we can control at this point, the thing we know we can do is the planning work. And then then we have a plan in hand and we can continue to apply and continue to have good applications. We can't control the funding pieces. I suspect, being a part of, the National Sustainable Ag Coalition and NOC and OFA and a lot of other folks who are doing a lot of that direct lobbying work, there's always been a bipartisan appetite for conservation and that type of funding. I think that if they really put that funding in jeopardy and it doesn't ultimately become part of the Farm Bill baseline, they're going to hear from enough of their voters. And this is not a red or blue question. I mean, the fact is, everybody needs soil. We all have to eat. And, I think we could pretty easily apply enough pressure that they would get the message. So I think we're going to see some disruptions. I think we are going to be in a time of flux. But I think in the end, I'm holding out hope that when we get a permanent Farm Bill, that a lot of the funds that were directed through IRA and through some of these other things, and there's some political points that need to be won. There's talk about the word climate and everything else. But I think once we get past some of those questions, we're likely to see that stuff rolled in as a baseline for the Farm Bill. Because everyone wins. I mean, when we keep soil on the landscape, when we keep nutrients out of our water, we all rely on it.
And I would have added the appetite to support agriculture generally has generally been pretty bipartisan too. You know, when you start hollowing out farm country, people get pissed. So that's at least going in our favor.
And we can always drive our tractors to Washington.
Done it before.
I honestly think it's time to do something like that again. So if anyone's old enough to remember the NFO days and some of those events, let's get on our tractors and start going.
It's just whether or not you can write a grant for the tractor.
But do get to know your state and federal politicians, especially those USDA grants. And there's special grants that you might not know about that they do, and they might not have someone to help write it, or they could sign a letter of support. Like little things like that can go a really, really long way.
So we have not only an organic farm that my husband manages, but we've also started a food distribution company.
Neat.
Is there anyone specific that we can get contact information from, or resources, or operation suggestions, just anything to get us going, to get us started, to kind of bridge the gap between the farmers and the markets and actually distributing the food?
You're looking for money, or you're looking for technical assistance, or both?
We're looking for all of it. We're just kind of wanting to see what all is available, what all is out there.
We can raise our hand for that. My card's on the back table, along with a little flyer about the Business Builder Awards. Yeah,
Okay, great.
yeah, absolutely. Call
Okay.
FFI.
Okay, well then, I mean, obviously now is not a good time to reach out about that, but
Sure.
I grabbed your card, so.
Good. That number that somehow goes to my pocket, like, call that.
Okay, that sounds great, thank you.
Thank you.
Would you mind repeating the question?
Oh, sorry. She was got a farm and food distribution center and looking for technical assistance and financing. And sorry, I didn't turn the mic on. So you guys have now heard the question without the microphone 2 different times. I apologize for that. But I was just saying that I'll volunteer the Food Finance Institute for folks who are looking for technical assistance and financing opportunities. Please do get in touch with us. We're building our capacity in the farm lane. We love seeing people level up their farm operations. We can help you with those finances. We can connect you with our network, and I'm willing to bet that most of the people at the table here would say the same thing.
There's tons of support out there. I mean, I said it before when I was talking about the transitioning. The fact is, there are more organizations providing technical assistance to the organic farming community than we've ever seen before. Food safety support, gap training, I mean, all of those pieces. The Wisconsin Food Hub is another, potential ally in the efforts you're undertaking. There's tons of support. Just reach out. I mean, yeah.
It almost seems like there's more TA people than farmers sometimes. Christine?
Maybe for Tom or Caleb, I'm curious about the transition opportunities for folks that are in more short-term lease arrangements where like maybe the landowner wants to transition, but it's not going to really work out for the farmer. Like, would you encourage the operating farmer to utilize those programs and bring it, or not necessarily?
They're not the producer. If that landowner is not engaged in the production, that's just rife with potential problems. I guess I would encourage that farmer to get a more secure and longer term lease. And we have resources to help navigate that process too. But yeah, I would, I guess, discourage. I mean, I know a lot of farmers in this room probably have rental contracts and rent a lot of ground. It's a common practice. But anyone who's going to go to the trouble to transition ground and manage it organically and is hoping to do that long term, start with a good lease.
I think we're at time, folks, so I think I gotta let everybody go. If you've got questions for us, we can probably stand around for a couple minutes, but we know we're between here and food. So, eat lunch. Thank you for being here. We appreciate your time and attention.